What's going on, everyone? All right. So this is my first time doing a video like this, using different technology that I haven't really used before. So I hope you bear with me as I kind of get this thing going. I wanted to dive into the many great characters of the Legend of Heroes game. If you haven't played them, they're fantastic. Great RPGs, and I think the world should know more about them, honestly. There are older games that came out, and from what I've seen, they're good games in the series on their own merit. But my journey into this series, the Legend of Heroes series, started with Trails in the Sky games. There are a bunch of characters throughout this series, and the next two arcs that come along after it, being the Crossbell duology and the Cold Steel arc. But we'll begin here as a starting point with the Trails in the Sky. This video should start with the titular character of Estelle. And while I absolutely love Estelle, I just can't speak on her quite yet without discussing the fantastically written character of Joshua Bright, aka Joshua Stray, formerly the Black Fang of Ouroboros. And if you know this series, you already know what I'm talking about, but we're gonna get into it. So I firstly want to dive into the childhood of Joshua, where this kind-hearted kid with midnight blue colored hair and amber colored eyes spends his days living the simple life with his big sister Karen and her boyfriend Leonhardt, aka Lue, who's also a great character within the series that we'll eventually get to. We only get a brief hint of the normalcy, as you can see, with her playing her harmonica. That becomes a very vital piece in this story as well. The carefree days that they had. But then tragedy strikes, and this normalcy is ripped away from them, and the village is attacked by a group of Jaegers, leading to the eventual Hundred Days War. But that's another discussion for another time. That war is crazy. That tragic day is where the innocence, the shyness ended, and his sister Karen was stabbed trying to protect him. And her last words as she faced down a soldier protecting Joshua were for him to grow strong. And she passed her harmonica down to him as a memento. And it was this moment I feel Josh, he definitely became lost and severely depressed watching her die in her boyfriend's arms as she, reached out to him. And their world, him and Lue, just kind of fell apart. Their beliefs were shattered, and Lue, mostly remained intact, save for his views of the world, pretty much, and becoming becoming distractingly different. Joshua, on the other hand, was completely broken by his sister's death. He was unable to cry, barely could speak, became withdrawn and mentally scarred. And Lue wanted to fix him, and eventually came to the group Ouroboros seeking help. And the Ouroboros is a very like secret society within the game. You don't really find out much that's going on with them until later, and they're led by a character called the Grandmaster, who's a female. And to this day, what they're trying to actually accomplish isn't quite known. Um, Overseas, the games are far ahead of us in the West, so they may have more of an idea at this point. Um, but coming to Ouroboros, they eventually meet George Weissman, who is the third Anguis, and I think it's like his nickname is like the Faceless. Like, but he promised to mend Joshua's broken heart in exchange, of course, for Joshua and Lue becoming a part of the organization as enforcers. And I personally think that their main intention was to get Lue, but Joshua was a throw in because Lue was now responsible for him and would keep his promise to his sister to watch over him no matter what. And, from that point on, he trained Joshua. As you can see, Joshua was pretty just to himself, as Lue in the background talking to Weissman about what needs to be done. But from that point on, the enforcer number 13, the Black Fang, was born. Weissman seemingly healed Joshua, but also turned him into a cold blood killing machine. And much to the dismay of Lue, you know, Joshua specialized in covert ops and guerrilla warfare, now donning, twin blades and as his signature weapon. He assassinated many people and even killed innocent bystanders at times. And during these missions, he and Leonhardt, Louvet. I go between Leonhardt and Louvet. I like Leonhardt better, but Louvet is what people kind of know him as. And eventually leading them, uh, as you can see, the massacre behind them, and their eyes are cold and distant. And it led them to rescuing Ren, also another enforcer, a character I'm gonna get deep into, whose story is quite tragic. And they brought her into Ouroboros as well. But this brings us to the age of 11 for Joshua when he was sent to kill the strongest and most skilled person in the series, the Divine Blade himself, Cassius Bright. And this, to me, definitely made zero sense in the story. Like, why would Weissman send a child to kill a person that they were the most afraid of? And I felt this way until I realized it made perfect sense, honestly. Cassius was obvious. Cassius was, obviously he was too much of a challenge for Joshua, you know, um, and the games don't say it much, but it kind of dove into the background of their fight a little bit, and basically he just was no match. And being the kind-hearted person that Cassius was, when Joshua was exposed, other operatives tried to kill him after he was exposed, and they didn't. I guess they just didn't want to leave any loose ends. They attacked Joshua, and Cassius defeated them, and he rescued Joshua, and you know brought him home. As you can see here, wrapped in bandages, he saved his life. And the games don't dive into it much, but it was obviously that he did this mainly to just protect Joshua. And at first, Joshua is quite bitter, and he didn't really like it. And his attitude really didn't seem to bother Cassius, but he quickly drew the ire of Estelle, Cassius' daughter, Estelle. And being the firecracker that she was, she wasn't going to stand for Joshua's attitude and gave him a good knock on the head every now and then when he would get out of line. So, but it was after meeting Estelle where things began to change, and he began to slowly embrace them as his family. And Cassius trained them together until they were teenagers. And as you can see, the scowl still on his face, and him not liking the situation, but recognizing that it's home at the end of the day. And though he had a new home, Joshua still missed his sister, still missed his past, and well, not necessarily missed the past, but missed his his sister and things that they used to be able to do with this peace that he had. And how he would deal with the pain was he would play that harmonica that she left for him. And the song that he played, The Whereabouts of Light, it's quite a very touching and lovely song if you ever really get to listen to it. And is the game's first game's main theme for a reason. And so I can go on about Joshua and Estelle due to and their adventures of becoming bracers. And I'm gonna try to stick to much about the character growth and his backstory, things like that. So throughout the first game, we witness they're now teenagers, and over the years, like I said, he embraced them as his family. Joshua is always shown to be the calmer of the two, the thinker, the brain. And then still is very much the brawn, a little loud, but still like the essence of her character is simply amazing to me. And but Joshua just stands above it. His character, I'm drawn to his character so much. He displays such honor for a teenager and will put his life on the line to help just about anyone, you know. And but Estelle, ooh, Estelle, do not mess with Estelle. It's clear that you feel the bond between the two, which Estelle, obviously sees as a brother sister bond. You know, this is how it's conveyed to the player as they play the game. But Joshua fully understands his feelings for Estelle immediately. She is not his sister. He loves her. She unknowingly becomes his light, his reason for changing, his reason for wanting to be better. And growing up with Estelle taught him to live again, you know, to hope again. And this is shown plenty of times throughout the first game. And when we reach, you know, the game's climax, where the twist happens and Professor Alba in the game reveals himself as Wiseman himself, is it's revealed to Joshua that his attack on Cassius was carefully planned, and because he trusted the heart of Cassius to want to save, he wanted to save Cassius and his family. You know, um, Joshua was used as a spy unintentionally, of course. Well, for him, but Weissman used him as a spy. He was controlled by the stigma that at times would bring reports to Weissman on Cassius and his whereabouts and what he was doing. Yes, they were very afraid of Cassius Bright. You know, there are times where I wonder, did Cassius know that he was being watched so closely, despite his raising of Joshua? He still kept his distance. And when he was dealing with his army stuff and past jobs, and this revelation angered Joshua, fearing his new family was in danger, and he sought revenge. So he reveals his feelings for Estelle here, and he kisses her, but slips her a sedative so that she can't follow him or stop him. He abandons her and, leaving behind his harmonica with her, he sets out to destroy Ouroboros. And what he needed to become to do this was something he did not wish for her to witness, and I can't blame him for that. When you love someone, you don't want to drag them down with you. And this resulted in the Black Fang needing to return. And that was the first chapter in Trails of in the Sky. So we move on to the second chapter, and I feel the second chapter is the best game of the series, where Joshua is now reverted back to his old ways, and he's still Joshua, but he's still a bit more cold and Well, now a bit more cold and ruthless and killing of monsters and how he speaks to people. I think they did such a great job showing the contrast in the game, of course, but it's better shown in the animated movie how cold he is on the exterior. Deep inside, he's just afraid of losing his family, losing Estelle, and so he severs the ties and joining with the Kopua Sky Pirates, who I'll get into it at some point. He finds himself in a lot of seclusion, sitting on their ship, and Josette, um, who's a character in the first game who has feelings for Joshua, often tries to bring him back from the edge that he's on, and still he works with them, seeking revenge against Ouroboros, and uses their ship to accomplish his missions to take them apart piece by piece. It's here we get to see Joshua in action and how much of a truly of a badass he is when the gloves are off. He's more formidable than people thinks that he is, and he starts out in the second game with, even high status quartz, and it's an absolute powerhouse for most of the game. Again, not going to dive too much into the game, just trying to keep it character focused. He succeeds in doing his fair share of damage, to society. And, what happens is Estelle eventually gets into the mix. And there's a scene in the game there. Oh, well, a scene that takes place in the anime that doesn't take place in the game is a fight scene between Joshua and Walter. And Walter is known as the Dire Wolf in the game. He's very strong. It's a Taito practitioner. It's a martial arts in the game, and he, takes out the entire party in the anime. And Joshua comes to the aid of Estelle, and it's rarely spoken about, but Joshua is one of, if not the fastest individuals in the entire series, as evidenced by, the Trails in the Sky anime fight with Walter. And with this one-on-one fight, it really needed to be in the game. It was such a great fight. But I definitely recommend that you check it out online. It's I think it's on YouTube. It's a really good fight. It really showcases his speed and how when when the gloves are off, he's something else, man. And it's a great way to kind of get an idea also of how strong these enforcers are, as you see him with his twin blades here. And he fights so effortlessly to protect her, and will such resolve here. And I hate to say it because you just kind of see his eyes are empty, the eyes of a killer. They're there, present. And like I said, very great fight. You get a chance to check it out. Walter kind of owns him in the beginning, but once he activates his speed. It's a pretty good fight. It's terrible after that. And but in the game, it kind of takes a different route. And once Estelle is wrapped up in it, she learns his backstory of what happened to him all these years ago that he never told her about. And he goes to rescue her from Ouroboros. When he rescues her, she confesses her love for him, and the two embrace. And she also gives him back the harmonica, the memento, and it's almost like she's giving him back his sister's love. And I just love what the harmonica represents. It's almost like a representation of one's heart, um, his heart giving it to her, and not needing it for what he was going to go do, and his sister giving it to him before giving her his heart. I mean, giving him her heart. It's just beautiful. And Joshua soon, after that, he finds himself shedding tears. He's crying, and tears that he'd been holding back since the day his sister died. And this was his first tears since that moment. And to me, it's a great symbolization of Joshua finding himself again, and the tears washing away the essence of the Black Fang, and him beginning this journey of becoming his true self. And Joshua Stray, died that day, and born was Joshua Bright. And Bright's the last name of Stell, of course, and Cassius. he really became a part of that family that day. And I can't deny that his Black Fang persona is just absolutely intriguing. It's that emptiness that he uses to fight, and makes him so formidable. Oh, I went a little too far ahead there. And yeah, it makes him formidable to me, and it's but it's just too dangerous for him to keep, and you worry about just what he could become, if he would slip into that fully. So I understand the needing to get rid of that, but there are still obstacles that stood in his way in earning this new life, and that was Louve. And like I said, I went a little too far ahead there, too quick. But Louve stood in his way, and after rejoining the party, after coming back to them, the events that happened in the game has him face his former fellow enforcers, leading him to the showdown with Louve, where he challenges him to a one-on-one fight. And Louve accepts his challenge, of course, and the two clash. Joshua's intent was, of course, not to kill the person he saw as his older brother, but show him that he is the evidence that, they have the strength to move forward. And, even after the disaster that took Karen in their home, now with his resolve, he finds his strength and disarms Lue, which had never been done before, you know. And this fight is so compelling because the stances they both take, and Lue wanting to punish Joshua for going against him, and Joshua wanting to save Lue from himself in his view of the world. And it's an exciting, but yet very sad fight as well. Your brothers trying to save one another, quote unquote save. And but to truly be fair, Joshua just was not the warrior Luve is. He just, despite the difficulty, Luve is clearly holding back in this fight. And you fight Luve in the first game, and God, he's such an insanely powerful fighter. And he's constantly talked about, even in the Cold Steel games, as one of the best fighters in Ouroboros. And Joshua was exhausted from their fight, and Lule is clearly appears to be unaffected, but he concedes defeat, and decides to leave Ouroboros. And this is better than Joshua defeating him outright, to me, because it meant that Joshua won him over, with his words and his bravery. He, you know, if Louve really didn't care, he could have easily killed Joshua. And then Joshua asked for his hand and his help in fighting Weisman, and but in this point in time, Weisman takes his chance to strike Louve from behind, dealing a devastating blow to him. And he activates the stigma that is embedded in Joshua. It kind of puts him into this trance, and he becomes the Black Fang unwillingly. And, the party confronts Wiseman, and he orders Joshua, of course, to kill Estelle. And, Joshua, being the smart person that he is, he suddenly snaps out of the trance. And, you know, when he's on top of Estelle and she's just looking back at him and knowing that he just wouldn't kill her, Estelle believes, she tells him that she believes in him, that he would never lose to someone like Weissman. And, unbeknownst to Weissman, Joshua worked on a way to break free of the stigma with Kevin, who is a dominion of the Septian Church, who, again, we will get into in another video. He's the main character in the third Trails in the Sky game. And he did this with Kevin in case Weissman forced him to do something that he dreaded the most, something Joshua, he counted on with when it comes to Weissman and his manipulative nature, his cruelty, killing the woman that he loved, you know. And Louve intervened as much as he could, but in giving him a chance to defeat Weissman, but shortly perished afterwards. And very sad moment, losing. everything that was tied to Joshua's home in Hamel. And I don't know if I said his home before. I apologize for that. And Hamel is the name of Joshua's home. Um, in the aftermath of everything that took place, Joshua and Estelle, they kind of confirm their relationship and have a kiss with each other, and eventually he visits his sister's grave again, this time bringing Estelle, who introduces herself, and he pays his respects to Louvet at the same time, placing Louvet's sword next to his sister's grave as another beautiful symbolization of kind of laying them to rest together. And Estelle got to see Hamel and learn everything that she needed to know about his past. Joshua was finally at peace, and being at peace was something that he had been searching for a long time with his past, and he left to travel the world with Estelle, atoning for his past sins. And the next time we see Joshua is at Phantasma, in third Trails in the Sky game, helping Kevin break out. And there's a lot to unpack. There isn't a lot to unpack about his character in part three. Um, he helped Louvet accept his death, and catching a final glimpse of his sister at Louvet's side. I don't have a slide for it. It was I wanted to get something that I could get, but it was just tough finding something on it. But he mostly served as Kevin's right hand man, and they both, yeah, as they break out of Phantasma with all the other people that you've come across throughout the first two games, and he accompanied Estelle in their travels around the world for Ren, of course, to invite her to be a part of their family when she defected from Ouroboros as well. And he and Estelle also helped the special support section in the Crossbell arc on a few occasions. And but after the first three games of Trails in the Sky, Joshua became kind of a cameo appearance more than anything, and it was playable in the Cold Steel arc at certain times, and did his part. As you can see, the loving family, as they all became family, and Ren became their sister. And this is them in Trails of Cold Steel 4, which is the last time in the West we get to actually see Joshua. With Ren, look at Ren all grown up a little bit. And we end with Joshua, side by side with Estelle, and the two are very much in love and are at times trying to get past the embarrassing and touching moments they have with Ren joining their family too, and the family's complete for now, you know, at this point. And so I'll dive into that's mostly his backstory. Probably some things that could have dove deeper into, but just wanted to stick to the essence of what his character is, and the peace that he found. And the evolution of Joshua is just fantastic to me. And not he doesn't really have like many powers or anything like that, but his abilities, Joshua is an expert in covert ops and highly intelligent tactical fighter. He uses smoke bombs, explosives when needed. He's a master martial artist with his main weapon, his dual blades. Uh, and he has lightning quick reflexes and speed. One of the fastest people in the entire series, though the game doesn't always quite show how strong he is. And like I said in the anime, he was nearly able to kill Walter the Dire Wolf, an extremely powerful enforcer in the Ouroboros, who had recently defeated Estelle and her entire party. you know and by the time he got to Phantasma, he had already kind of reached his potential at that point, as him and Estelle started becoming kind of celebrities in being bracers. And his phantom raid ability is something also that does a good, kind of gives a good glimpse of his speed, and he's able to create two extra copies of himself during this move, and he splits simultaneously and attacks other things, and it just represents how fast he's moving. You know, if you really want to, I really want to dive into his powers and everything like that. But it's just the essence of the character that I love so much, you know. And you know, in closing, Joshua is just an extremely compelling character and undergoes significant character growth throughout the series. I think he's an absolutely brilliant character, and I love to see more of him in the future. And you know, his evolution, his strength of character, his resolve remind me a lot of myself. I hold myself to very high standards, and I'm big on respect and honor. I beat this into my boys' heads. You know, respect and honor is big, and I see a lot of myself in Joshua, and I think that's why I feel so personally attached to him. And you know, not the killing parts, of course, but I have some dark things in my past that I've had to atone for as well, and you know, and so I feel like I just kind of understand him, and hopefully we haven't seen the last of the former Black Fang Joshua Stray, you know, aka Joshua Bright, and with that, I think I'll end there, but just wanted to really dive into that character, and I think he's very special, and thank you all for listening, and hope you enjoyed this. I plan to do more, and probably do Estelle next, which is gonna take a bit to really dive into certain things with her. She's something else. So, but I plan on doing one on each arc, the characters in the arc, and hope you guys come back for some more. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy and come back, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you all. Peace.